last week, basically we identified our precious human life. We at least attempted to identify what our life presents to us. So then we felt like, I don't know, my goal was for us to feel like a beggar who has just won the lottery. No, we ran out of time. But that's not the whole equation, whole part of the thing, because even if beggar has won the lottery, if he doesn't know the value of the lottery, then it doesn't make sense, no? He's jumping around, got the lottery, but then the value of the lottery, meaning of the lottery, and also how to make use of that lottery. So we're going to just start talking a little bit about that part. So since you brought up this purpose or the value of this, what our life present to ourselves, this so-called precious human lives, which last week we tried to identify. I have a question. So each of you maybe can take a moment to think about what is the important thing to do with this particular human life, number one. Maybe you can write about what is the important thing to do with this precious life. What does it mean to you to live a meaningful life? You know, in your practice, we talked about extracting a meaning from this particular precious life. What does that mean to you? Basically, I want to consider the purpose of having a precious human life. Okay, so I want you to go into this a little bit of discussion mode without any judgment, of course. As you know, this is a completely open, safe, non-judgmental environment. We are a group of people, practitioners, who only want to transform our mind, deepen our realization. No other strange motive here. What's the purpose? Or no purpose? Or how about your emotional resistance about this kind of questions? Does your precious human life have a value or great value? How would you say? This I shared or I implied to make this gap between the practice, so-called prescribed practice, and our daily life less, so to speak. Make everything your own Dharma practice, moment to moment. So that's important. But how we make everyday moment Dharma practice is this motivation of bodhicitta. No, this is just about review, honest review of one's own life. Maybe we may not think about this kind of thing in general, including myself. This is the opportunity to just stop, to think about the meaning, ultimate meaning or temporary meaning, maybe moment-to-moment meaning. So just feel into this one. Then classical text talks about the sign of realization on this point. If we have realized or we integrated this contemplation on purpose of having precious human life is when you become distressed, even if your instance of time is vainly spent. That's a very classical explanation. We should really reflect on one's own life. How am I feeling if we contemplate on the purpose of having precious human life? How does that change my life, daily attitude? The next one is the difficulty of finding leisure and fortune, this precious human life. Because if lottery, that beggar, who we are right now, won the lottery, right? If he can win the lottery again and again, not so special in a sense, not rare, right? So we have to really recognize this lottery or that this human precious life is so rare, hard to find, almost impossible. Then classical text talks about many ways to prove that. One way is that using the causes of attaining the precious human life is so difficult to get. So there are three causes. Just in case those of you who are not familiar with this kind of classical teaching, I just go over quickly, but those are not the main purpose of here, but I just want to go quickly. One is a pure ethical conduct. For example, 10 virtuous actions. So abandoning 10 destructive actions. Now, all of us here in this present moment, we have a precious human life. Why? We practice in the past for some point. We practice for non-destructive actions, not the killing, not the stealing, and so forth. That's only part of 3. Then second one is this so-called 6 parameters, generosity and patience and so forth. We practice that in the past. Then third one is that making pure prayers, which we just did during the Geo practice, but we've done that in the past. All those things are the causes, but to take a moment to think about it. Are we practicing, continue to practicing those things in our daily lives? Any of us here never committed the 10 non-virtuous actions, never told a lie, or so forth. We can reflect on. So causes are very difficult to create. And also by analogy, they used a lot of analogies and how rare it is. And also numbers. They talk about how many human beings among all sentient beings and so forth. So those are difficult to find. Maybe take a moment to think about it, how difficult to get to this point. Then we come to this not taking it for granted. If you waste time, it said a person would feel like a spilled bag of gold into a river. See if you can feel this amazement or amazed at your fortune to have this present opportunities. Then make a determination or determine to use it well. Then question arises, how do you usually use it? What dominates your life? How much does this understanding influence your life, daily lives? Then what are the impediment? What's impeding you to utilizing this precious human life? I want you to write down maybe 3 things. What's your impediment? In the classical teaching, talk about the 8 worldly concerns. These are the chief distractions to practice the Dharma purely and transforming our mind. So just take a moment to reflect. How much of ups and downs in your life, or how much energy is stuck in this? Then which of the 8 worldly concerns do you find the most prevalent in your life? I'm not going to go over the 8 worldly concerns one by one. I've done in the past, but those come in pair: loss and gain, praise and blame, disrepute and fame, pleasure and pain. Anybody would like to share? I don't think so. But what do you think about these questions? How do you feel? You don't like it? How about making some kind of specific examples in your life? How these things are operating in your life? All these 8 worldly concerns are Buddha's words. Buddha said, these things are transient in human life, inconstant and bound to change. So he knew all about this. So you are not the only one. Why there's a problem then? Maybe not problem for you. Why do you think these are the issues, impediment? What's wrong with the 8 worldly concerns? Or there's a pair, right? Flip side, everything. If you too attached, then you get the disappointment, lost, all these things. It's called a problem. Cause us a problem in our life. No, it's inconvenient. So we have to realize that one. That's maybe first step. If 8 worldly concern, it's nothing wrong with that. Just I like this roller coaster, ups and downs of life, and automatic kind of way of living. I'm happy with that. Then deathbed. Those people wouldn't be here actually. Does this make you waste your potential? This obsession of the 8 worldly concerns? Well, rest of you don't know anything about that. This is not about condemning or this is a nature of samsara. It's part of the conditioning or the conditioned existence. But then my invitation is to realize that, recognize that, we have this. So that's the thing, without any judgment or good or bad or should or shouldn't even. That sort of idea. So then next question is, what are the antidotes? How we tackle with the stubborn eight-worldly concern. Then it comes to this contemplation of death and impermanence. So this is a path we are kind of treading little by little.